Welcome to another edition of the Gridiron Report. I'm Jared Johnson, and Texas Tech takes on in-state conference rival Baylor, 7 p.m. Saturday in Waco at McLean Stadium right there on the Brazos. And, it's the most interesting part of this game for really both programs, both teams this season, is that these two teams meet at the crossroads of their seasons. Both of them had high expectations coming into this year. Both of them had really disappointing losses early in the season. Texas Tech, of course, lost at Wyoming, who, by the way, looks pretty dang good so far. And then they also lost to Oregon. They lost their Big 12 opener against West Virginia. And these were all close games. These were all one-possession games where Tech could have won, but they lost. But they're coming off a big win against Houston. 49-28, got to 2-3 overall, evened up their Big 12 record. So, a little jolt in the arm there with that 21-point victory. And then Baylor, similar story. I mean, that big loss to Texas State at home in the home opener was tough. But then last week, they came back and they erased a huge, 4-touchdown deficit at UCF in their Big 12 matchup to win really a thriller. So, likewise, just like Tech, they're 2-3 overall, 1-1 in the Big 12, and both these teams, needless to say, really need a victory. I think it could catapult them just at the midway point of their seasons to perhaps a respectable, enjoyable season for their program and their fan base. Now, the loser is left licking their wounds. Both of them will have tough schedules, and of course, in the Big 12 conference remaining, and we'll really be kind of looking at each other like, what's next, which is what Joey McGuire likes to say. And then there's all these storylines. Speaking of Texas Tech's head coach Joey McGuire, who used to coach at Baylor, was an assistant coach, under Matt Rule and then Dave Aranda, and he was up for the head coaching job with Aranda, and then McGuire's at Tech. And Baylor went into Lubbock last year and really trounced Texas Tech. It was the worst loss. McGuire told me in the offseason that that's the one game he really wishes they could have back. And the most impressive part of it from Baylor's perspective for me was how they dominated in the trenches. And McGuire brought that up Monday in the press conference. And, every coach provides coach speak in these press conferences, especially in a season. But I thought McGuire had some sincere thoughts about that game and with Baylor, and that the Bears were able just to run the ball on them. And in my opinion, and I think he said the same thing. That's the only time I saw Texas Tech get physically dominated. And I think the fact that it was like Mahomes' night against their former team, not just McGuire, but several guys, several coaches, and some of the recruiting staff, important people in this program, were at Baylor before. So that was a really tough pill to swallow. Now, Tech bounced back and had a really good season last year, but here they are. They get another shot at their former team, this time in Waco. So that's an interesting angle to this game as well. Another interesting angle is when you think of Baylor and Texas Tech, traditionally, especially, let's say, this century, you think about them throwing the ball over the yard. Now, under Briles, they did have a significant power running element, and which was really impressive the way they did it. But high-scoring team, put up a lot of points, would still put up a lot of passing yards as well. And, of course, Texas Tech with the air raid, Mike Leach and everything, Kingsbury, Patrick Mahomes. I mean, Tech has had one of the best offenses this century. But now, when you associate both programs a lot, and spread offenses and throwing the ball over the yard. Now, while they'll both still be in spread, Baylor will use some 12 and 13 personnel, a la when you think about like Iowa State here recently, and they will try and run over Texas Tech. And now Texas Tech is in itself has kind of discovered its own identity, that the passing game hasn't lived up to its potential, which is, I think, been a big part of what's gone in. Not the whole story, but it's gone into the disappointing 2-3 start. But the running game, Taj Brooks has run for over 100 yards 3 weeks in a row. Last week, Cameron Valdez joined the party, and Texas Tech had two running backs go over 100 yards in the same Big 12 game for the first time since 1998. That's a really impressive stat. And I think they ran early and often, and it set up the pass. Baron Morton had a more efficient game than any quarterbacks had so far for Texas Tech this season. He's been a little banged up. So my point is, Baylor, who I think they have 3 running backs averaging over 50 yards right now, and then Baylor's rush defense isn't the best in the world, by the way. I think it's last in the Big 12. I'd have to look at the exact stat, but what's setting up is that you got all the ties. You got 2 teams at the crossroads of their seasons. They can go one way or the other, and both teams are going to look to run the ball. I think with good quarterbacks. I mean, Shapen was very impressive in orchestrating that comeback. They have very, very good receivers, and Baron Morton is capable of very capable dude. Former 4-star, Elite 11 guy. He's put up 300-yard, multiple touchdown games in the Big 12 in his young career. So don't get me wrong. I think the quarterbacks, the receivers will be heard from. But it's shaping up for this ground and pound physical battle in this really important in-state Big 12 rivalry. I'm not saying it's the biggest rivalry for either school, but they are in-state guys with a lot of ties, programs that recruit against one another. There are some exciting storylines in this game, but it's all going to unfold. 7 p.m. Saturday night, like I said, in Waco. The game will be televised on ESPN2. I'll be on the Rockin' pregame here locally in Lubbock, Rock 101.1 FM. So check that out. We'll have a lot of recruiting. I'm going to compare the classes the last 4 years that both Baylor and Tech have had, how they stack up. But we're going to have, I think we're going to have some pretty exciting guests. I think Eric Ward's going to be on the show. And we'll talk with John Morris, voice of the Baylor Bears, as well, to get a preview. So check out our Rockin' pregame. But we have all kinds of content here on Inside the Red Raiders. Mighty Joe's How to Watch, our podcast, mailbag, our predictions, tons of content coming your way. Some stories from the coaches from earlier this week in the press conference. But for now, I want to thank you for watching, and until next time.